Hi, good evening, everyone. Welcome to today's session with Pivot. Excited to do this new session with two of really good speakers that we have backstage for you, Ramesh Jayavaram and Shreya Mehta, talking about how to land premium jobs abroad as an immigrant. Um, there's a lot happening in US and other countries right now which are popular for people from India to migrate to for work and education purposes. And there's a lot that needs to be discussed on how to navigate today's challenging world when it comes to immigration. So that's why we wanted to do this session. We are going to bring both Ramesh and Shreya onto the stage in just a second. Allow me to do that. All right, perfect. Hi, Ramesh and Shreya. Hope you both are doing well.
Hi, Arjun. Yes, thank you. Thank you for inviting me to this panel.
Hi, likewise. I think we're doing
Great. Thanks.
great. Thank you.
Great. Great. Thank you so much. So, let's kick it off with a round of intros, Ramesh, Shreya. What I'll do is just for folks who might not know about me or about Pivot, just talk about myself very quickly, and then I will turn it over to you both to share about your journeys as well. So again, folks who don't know me, I am Arjun and I'm the founder of Pivot. We started Pivot about 3.5 years ago with the main premise of helping people make smoother and more successful career transitions. Um, reason I started this is because I really felt passionately that that whole concept of one life, one career is over. What happened to job hopping, let's say 2-3 decades ago, is now happening to the career space, and we'll discuss more about this during the course of this conversation. But essentially, what we do at Pivot is help people make transitions, whether they are changing their domain, their industry, their level in the organization, or even geography changes going from one country to another and certain other inflection points, right? So again, we'll talk more about this, but I would love to turn it over to our speakers here, Ramesh and Shreya. Warm welcome. Thanks again for making time for this. Would love to start with Shreya. If you can, share a little bit about your journey so far and what exactly it is that you do today.
Yeah, absolutely. Hi, everyone, and I'm super excited to be here. I know my camera looks a little blurred. We'll come back to that later. But I've been a coach for over 12 plus years now. I have been a recruiter with companies like Microsoft, Amazon, TikTok, Uber. I've been living in US for over 9 years now. 8 years of my career, honestly, 6 months I took to restart, kickstart everything. I've been on multiple visas, everything that I can think of. Usually, Indian immigrants get on in US. I have tried that. Right now, what do I do is I help Indian immigrants in United States and Canada to land the job that they're looking for. So anything and everything from resume to building up the profile, networking, mock interviews, storytelling, and of course till the time they get the offer. So right now we're running that program so that we can help a lot of people to get that job because one, there is an idea. We don't know what we need to do as job seekers, but then once we submit the application, we don't know what's happening on the industry side, right? So I have both the information because I've been a job seeker, I've been a recruiter. So we share that. So I'm a co-founder of a company. It's called the Super Coach, and I have a partner, and both of us together have probably around 21 plus years of experience in the industry. So we bring all of that.
Amazing. Thanks so much, Shreya. Very helpful, and excited to discuss all the insights that you have had throughout your journey. Ramesh, welcome again, and please go ahead and share a bit about yourself.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. Hi, everyone. I'm Ramesh Jayavaram. I currently work at Boston University as Assistant Director of MBA Career Coaching. I came to the US almost 10 years ago for my MBA program. I'm an engineer. I studied engineering and then worked in construction project management back in India and then moved to the US, not knowing what I wanted to do. Fell in love with marketing and startups, so worked in marketing roles and as a startup coach for a few years. And then approximately 6 years ago, I decided I wanted to do something more meaningful. And I transitioned to the career coaching field. So I worked for the last 5-6 years. I worked at Northeastern University, Boston University, rejoined Boston University last year. And I also worked at a large coding boot camp called General Assembly. And most of my roles involved working as a career coach, career counselor for MBA students, specialty master students, STEM master students and undergrad students. Yeah, so I'm also a multiple time career changer, from construction project management to marketing now to career coaching.
Brilliant, brilliant. Thanks, Ramesh. And so it seems like, all of us have done some sort of a transition. So that's something that's common. And I believe we all have spent time in both India and US. So hopefully we can bring that insight forward around navigating multiple geographies. Um, but let's kick this off. I think the first thing that I wanted to discuss is, actually something I have written about on LinkedIn today. You both might have seen that. Shreya, maybe not you. It's too early for you still. So I don't know if you have checked your LinkedIn yet. But what I talked about is my own experience when I graduated around the financial crisis of 2008, 2009. And, the job market was quite challenging back then as well as it is now. But in, different nuances and kind of different fact patterns at that point compared to what it is today. What was challenging then was to find job as an immigrant because companies were downsizing, they were freezing hiring. Um, those fact patterns might be similar to what we are experiencing today in US and not just US, some other markets as well, like UK and Singapore and little bit Canada too now. Um, but things have really drastically changed from a job market landscape over the last decade or so. So what my experience was, let's say in 2010, 11, may not carry forward to what exactly the things are on ground today. And that's what I really want to understand to get things started. According to you, what are some of the most important trends that are taking shape in 2025 which will impact the on ground job market, how hiring happens, how companies are adapting to immigrant trends or non-immigrant stances that governments are taking. So kind of looking at things with a broad stroke at a high level, if you can just tell us what are the most important factors immigrants should keep in mind when thinking about transitioning from one country to another. Shreya, we'll start with you if that's okay.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's a great question because, like you said, all of us have transitioned and then things have changed a lot since then. What I look for in 2025 is one that it is not going to be one. One solution to all our concerns. That means, like, if you are looking at different markets would have different trends, US versus European in that sense, because I've had clients and candidates reach out from both of these markets and they definitely have different trends. What trends are we talking about now? First would be what kind of roles they are open for, right? That has changed drastically in the last 2 years. Right now, I see a lot more like data scientists, data engineers, business analysts, but then also the fluidity of these roles. That means people are okay transitioning to from one to another, and they're very open in taking, like, hey, I've had like program manager background all this, why I want to get into product, how do I do that, right? So I see a lot more fluidity. For that, two things need to be done, especially from the candidate perspective. One is, be an expert in what you're doing so your jobs cannot be taken by anybody else, or you can actually go and be that star candidate in that interview. And second would definitely be, try finding more skills from different jobs perspective as well. So once you are in that situation where it's difficult to find a role, you can still navigate with the fluidity, right? Another thing is, and a lot of us actually underestimate that, is the behavioral piece of it. That means, as much as you need the technical and the hard skills, you definitely need the soft skills. That is going to make you stand out at the last, when we have like two candidates and we're trying to figure out which one, right? um, of course, there are a lot more other changes politically, economically, that's happening, that would come into the picture, especially with a lot of things changing in January for us. But individually, all of us need to figure out, one, what is my USP, and second, if I have to be fluid in my job search, what would be my second and third options from there.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I think things are definitely in flux, especially given the new government coming in to US, and it's going to be hard to predict what exactly will happen. Once they come, because if even if you look at when Donald Trump became president the first time, there was a lot of expectation reality mismatch as to what was promised. Ultimately, what happened? Some of the promises were kept, some were not, and I think it would be kind of hard to almost futile to predict exactly what's going to happen. But I think the point that you touched upon, Shreya, about fluidity, which kind of basically implies that we should be ready for anything, we should be adaptable um, for different scenarios. I think that really hits home. That makes a lot of sense. Ramesh, I think a similar question for you, right? From your perspective, especially, given that you have also navigated different type of careers, you have worked in India, US, in different fields. What do you believe, based on all your learnings today, if you had to share your most important takeaways from your transition, especially moving from India to US, what can be really helpful in helping people prepare to navigate a foreign job market?
Yeah. So I would say I think a lot of international students, specifically Indian students, are used to a system where campus placements happen, right? If you are from top 100 colleges in India, campus placements is probably happening a lot, right? You might have gotten a job before even graduation or immediately after graduation, and that's not the case in the US. Even if you're in the top 10 schools, right? It might the school or the career services department can help you prepare, right? Prepare for career fairs, prepare for conferences and interviews, but nobody is going to guarantee you an interview. Nobody is guarantee you is going to guarantee you a job. So that students should keep this in mind. Okay. And then, yes, grades are important, but there are very few companies who really uh, give that much importance to grades, right? And some companies that care about grades are using those grades as a cutoff mechanism because they get so many applicants because they are very famous companies or they pay really well, right? They are international companies. So understanding the importance of grades is also important. So is it worth that extra time and effort that you're putting in to get that 3.9 or 4.0 when 3.5 is enough, right? So that is something students should understand and use the time and effort smartly for what is important. And in this case, if you're looking for a job, if the student or the professional is looking for a job in the US, they should focus on networking, building their relationships with US employers and alumni, right? And like Shreya mentioned, the communication skills, that's really important, right? Branding skills, how do you talk about yourself, how do you introduce yourself, your LinkedIn profile, resume, and everything. Okay, so it's a very different job search. There's a lot of onus on the individual. You could be going to a top school, but you still need to do a lot of work, especially from a personal branding and marketing perspective, to get good opportunities. And exactly like Shreya mentioned, the flexibility piece, right? Having that plan ABC, I call it plan ABC, uh, is really important because you never know what's going to happen. The industry might change, the company might be doing layoffs, or something else might happen. So having that backup plan is also important.
Ramesh, I don't know, if times have changed so much, but I do feel that even if you're going to top 10 universities and you're saying that there is no guarantee of a job today, I mean, that's a bit of a startling fact, right? I mean, in the sense that people peg so much of their hope and so much of their finances when going to a international top university, and to face diminishing job prospects in such a scenario, can be quite challenging for a lot of people. But I think the good thing that you highlighted is that even though universities may not be able to guarantee anything, and I think even Indian universities are not able to guarantee every time. Like I know IIT Bombay had a 64% placement rate in the last placement season, which is the lowest it's ever been in a long time. I do think the strategies that you are going to talk about and you have hinted at in terms of um, building your own profile, personal branding, ensuring you're leveraging your own network as well. I think those things are gaining more and more prominence over the last few years. Even I have definitely seen that, which was not as common earlier, like maybe 15, 20 years ago, because social media wasn't really a thing that much back then, right? So I'd love to touch upon that more. But specifically, the next thing that I want to ask in terms of these trends, one of the trends that we have been hearing about, Shreya and Ramesh, is that since Elon Musk laid off half of Twitter, that many other companies in tech, but outside of tech, have followed suit with layoffs, especially focusing on removing, the middle layer, which they consider as expendable, right? Which is kind of doing mostly managerial stuff. And that has become a big trend in US and certain other countries as well. So that's one of the trends that we have been hearing about. And the other trend is that companies are definitely doubling down on hiring talent for specific domains where they see a lot more potential and opportunity in the near future, AI being the obvious one, but certain other areas as well. So, can we touch upon these major trends and how, in your perspective, is it impacting the job market right now? The both the scenario of, let's say, layoffs of certain types of workers, as well as hiring focus on certain type of talent, who bring in demand skills to the table. Shreya, again, we'll start off with you.
Yeah, of course. So see, when layoff happens, there's one thing that happens, that now we have hundreds or thousands of more applicants than we would have otherwise for a role, right? So I, as a recruiter, as a company, have a lot more choice and an option to lowball them, or an option to bring a better expert in one lesser value. But I also have more um, candidates to speak with, right? So that's a demand versus supply imbalance that we're talking about here. Because of that, and especially people on visa, they tend to take up anything that comes their way, that, hey, it's the foot in the door, I need to stop that clock. Is it opt, is it h1? I need to stop that. I need to feed my family. I need to stay in us, or the specific countries that we're talking about. And then I can figure out one. Then it sets on the second trend, which is the fluidity in the job market, right? I was a program manager for 20 years, but I was laid off, and now I'm okay doing a project management role as well, which might be two levels lesser than what I would want right now. That kicks in everything else. From the hiring perspective, of course, one, there is that legal biases that comes into being. Second is the visa sponsorship that comes into being. That if I'm taking up a program manager, if I'm taking up a data scientist as a degree, can I actually sponsor their visa for a different role, right? That whole thing's come into being for me as a company in the back end. But also, I think when layoffs happen, the overall quality of the pool increases, but then it also increases the quantity of the pool, delaying all the process. That ghosting happens. See, imagine if I'm a recruiter, I've seen like hundreds of DMs in a day, right? As much as I don't want to ghost anybody, that happens, right? As much as I want to keep a track of everybody I spoke to in a week, ghosting might happen if that is not the best candidate, and I might not reply to them until I'm done cleaning that whole requisition, cleaning that up in my system, right? So that one layoff actually trickles down a lot of things from both the perspective. Now, as a candidate, I feel I need to be so much better in a lot of other things, not just behavioral, technical, but also some other things that they might ask and I can provide. That is the preferred qualification we write in the job descriptions, right? From the company side, I now think there's so much more to clean up. Can I do honest, good candidate experience individually with all of them? Probably not. Am I doing that intentionally? Probably not. But it's just the need, right? If a hiring manager needs to fill something within 2 months, and I have thousands of applicants, what am I going to do? I'm going to do a keyword search, do a filter search, and probably not reach out to all of these resumes, right? In unintentionally, that is unfair, but I got to do what I got to do, right? So it trickles down a lot of these effects on both the angles is what I want to share.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's a kind of a between a rock and a hard place situation for a lot of people, because what's happening, and you pointed it out, is when you are getting laid off, or even if you're not laid off, but the job market is full of people who have been laid off. It would have been one thing if there were enough opportunities for everybody, right, in the market, and everybody could transition to a role that was similar to what they were doing
Yeah.
previously. But what we are seeing, and you've pointed it out, is that there are a lot of times when people are not finding the same opportunities because they were working at an Amazon and a Google and a Microsoft, and very well paid and lucrative packages, opportunities which just cannot be replaced in the market today. And so many folks are now okay with taking lower packages just because of the stark reality of the job market. And that creates more competition at every level, not just the ones at which layoffs are happening, but at the levels below it as well. Right. So I think that part makes a lot of sense. Ramesh, what I was hoping to gather from you, I think Shreya really emphasized beautifully how layoffs are impacting the job market. If you can talk more about what are companies really looking for today in terms of the new types of roles or new types of skill set that you have seen take more center stage over the last couple of years. I think you can feel free to share about AI. I know it's the elephant in the room when we talk about skills today. But apart from that, also, if there is anything non-tech oriented that you might have seen, business school professionals, for example, focus on, that would be really helpful to understand to get a broad overview.
Yeah. Before I answer your question, I want to also add my perspective to your previous question to Shreya from a career coach and career
Sure.
changer perspective. So I think for international students who are taking a lot of loans and coming here with the expectation that they're gonna, earn a good income, pay back their loan, right? If you're in that bucket, you have to be very smart in the sense. I think before even you arrive in the U.S. or even other foreign countries, you have to understand how the system works, right? Shreya alluded to I think keywords. If you're not sure about what that means, try to learn about that, right? How does LinkedIn work? How do recruiters use LinkedIn to find candidates, right? What is an ATS system, applicant tracking system? All this is very important because the reality is, in the US at least, for every good job at a big brand name company, recruiters are probably getting thousands of applications within 2 days max. So humanly, it's not possible to look at each resume or respond to each application. So ATS systems, which is another AI tool, if I may call it, is being used by almost every major company, every recruiter to streamline the process. Okay, so understanding what's happening behind the scenes is super important. Okay, and I think from a layoffs perspective, I tell my students all the time, you should always be networking. You should be interviewing until you have a confirmed offer and you start working. Okay, because there have been situations where companies have given out offers, you sign the paperwork, and then the companies like cancel the offer or postpone the joining date by like a 6 months or 1 year due to economy or other reason. So you have to protect yourself. And what does that mean? Continuously networking, continuously branding yourself properly, and that means also interviewing, even if you're not planning to change jobs. Okay. Yeah, that's what I would say. So look out for yourself. Okay. Um, Regarding new roles, I would say, yeah, everything related to AI, right? If you look at all the venture capital money, right, where these venture capitalists and angel investors are putting money into, it's mostly like 50% into AI related technology in different industry, not just software, but healthcare, right, biotechnology. And there are different industries where the impact of AI is going to be tremendous. It's going to save millions and millions of dollars. So understanding where this investment is going on and how you can potentially like not only just understanding this, but build your relationships with people, potentially hiring managers or recruiters in that industry. And the best way to do that is attending conferences, meetups, okay, reaching out to people who work in those companies or industries for informational interviews, coffee chats, right? Non-tech roles, I think, we don't know what's the future going to be, but I believe personally, I would suggest all students to consider STEM opportunities. Okay, that means science, technology, engineering, math programs. Right, that way you'll have the STEM OPT. Hopefully, that program is not being changed, but that the STEM OPT allows you to work 3 years legally immediately after graduation. Okay, there are STEM MBA programs also. So that means you will be doing an MBA program, and simultaneously or immediately afterwards, you'll be doing a master's program, which is STEM approved. So that will help you get 2 degrees at a lesser budget and less time, but also take advantage of the STEM OPT. Okay, I would, yeah, I'll stop there
Yeah.
for now.
No, I think keep going if you have more to share. I didn't mean to interject you, but I think I just wanted to say that the roles that you're talking about, the STEM opportunities, I think definitely for students who might be graduating or might be considering studying abroad, makes a lot of sense. Ramesh, anything you would say for professionals who might want to transition without further education, in the sense that either they are already in US or they might be transitioning from another country to US but are not necessarily looking for further education? Anything that you would touch upon there?
Yeah, in that case, I would say I have limited experience, by the way, with helping professionals who are in India to come to the US. But based on my limited experience, knowledge about this part, I would say again, I think employers are like, why do employers hire talent, right? They need a problem to be solved, right? They need someone 3 months ago or yesterday, and they want someone with the right talent, and that tends to be mostly tech oriented, cybersecurity, AI, right? And I think if you have those skills, that can help you a lot. But also, again, understanding how the process works, right? Not just applying online, right? Building that quality relationships with potential hiring managers or people who work in that company on the department is going to be really, really important. Okay, and it's possible to network thanks to LinkedIn and all the online technologies. You can do coffee chats over Zoom or even WhatsApp, other tools, and I think that can make a big difference. You can attend hybrid conferences or online conferences and build your network that way. So again, it's all about bringing that uh, skills and experiences that are unique, that an employer values, right? Otherwise, why would they hire someone from a different country and spend tens of thousands of dollars in the sponsorship costs, right, and potentially training you? So understanding that and
Mhm.
following the process would help.
I
Got
definitely
it.
want to add a little bit more here because I've worked with like candidates and clients who've
Sure.
done that switch, that they're here, they've worked for like 5, 7 years now, they're looking for that switch, right? So you know how we usually say, who do you know really matters? Now in your job search, two things really matters. One, who do you know? And second, what do you know, right? So who do you know would be everything that Ramesh was just talking about. That means one, you like network the like I don't even want to use wrong word, but network every day, like meet people, connect with them, go on these coffee chats, because that would make you understand that what's happening in the world outside of your company, what's happening in the world in terms of projects, in terms of experiences, in terms of trends, right? One thing is reading everything on Reddit, another thing is actually discussing it with somebody who's doing that project. So one, yes, network and coffee chat. Another thing would be, what do you offer, right? When you know what the world is looking for and when you know what you're offering, there'll be a good combination of finding that right role. So I would say that when I was working at TikTok, I got my call from an Uber recruiter just through LinkedIn. I never replied to it, but I got my Uber role through that because I was very active. I was commenting, I was connecting with people, I would go out on coffee chats even when I had a full-time job, just to understand what is actually happening in the market, where can I offer more, where can I learn more from, right? If you're very comfortable in the space that you are in, that's absolutely okay. To know more people, it's fine. And earlier we all were talking about that, how bigger companies also does not give that amazing bigger um, com- mm, universities also does not guarantee placements in this market, right? I always stick back to the idea of exposure versus experience. You can get the exposure, but the experience you get from that exposure is who you are as an individual. You and I can have the same university, same professors, same college, same assignments, but what individually we pick from there, what we learn individually from there, would be our experiences. And that changes the idea of what the whole placement looks like in 2025.
Thanks for sharing that, Shreya. I think makes a lot of sense. I think both in terms of networking and then what you take away from different exposures that you get. I think that's a very nuanced insight that not a lot of people have. And I think what you're trying to point out is like you could have the same background and environment, but very different outcomes for the same people, depending on what you make out of that exposure that you're getting. So yeah,
Absolutely.
no, makes a lot of sense. Um, just before we dive into the next question, I do want to know, let our audience know that we will be taking up your questions with Shreya and Ramesh soon. So I see some of you have already started to share them in the chat. So please keep the questions coming, and stay back because we are going to be taking them up very, very soon. So on to the next thing, and this is kind of a bit of a landmine, I would say. So navigate it, as tread carefully as you would like. But it is a very popular question that we get with regard to work permits, and especially if you're transitioning from a country like India or any other country to US today where you need a work permit, or you might be within US, got laid off, have very limited window to find your next job, right? So both of those situations have become very challenging to navigate compared to how it used to be, I think, a few years ago, especially because of the job market and the anti-immigrant atmosphere that's been there a little bit over the last couple of years. So in your experience, Ramesh, we'll start with you on this one, and feel free to caveat it, not answer it, whatever you want.
Yeah.
That's really up to you. What are, in your experiences, the most common ways that people now transition from one country to US, especially? Um, what are the most common ways to get a work permit? Is it still just primarily H-1B? Are there other ways that people can, land jobs or, stay within US to work professionally? What are you seeing in the market?
Yeah, really good question, and I think it really helps all potential students and professionals to understand various visa pathways. So H-1B is obviously the popular one, but there are several other visas, right? Um, the STEM OPT is one a work authorization as well, but L1 visas, right? Getting transferred from an Indian company to the US company, right? That is also a popular route, and also getting sponsored directly green card by the employer is another popular route. But I think the with especially employer based green card, the bar is very, very high, right? And even L1, I'm not aware of that, but there are other category of visas, EB1, EB2, which are, I think, called extraordinary ability visas. There are a lot of there's a book written about it, and there are now immigration attorneys and experts teaching how to do this, and it's a multi-year process, a lot of investment as well. But I think there are, beyond H1B, there are many other pathways that can help professionals and students legally work in the US.
Yeah, Shreya, you have been a recruiter and you have, yourself, I mean, you've coached a lot of immigrants. What have you found in terms of employers, um, their propensity or their receptiveness to hiring immigrants, and how is that impacting the job market for immigrants? Because, I mean, from what we hear, it's not what it used to be. There is less receptiveness. So if that is the case, how are people navigating it?
Right, and that's a great question. And I would add to what you said that I've worked with immigrants, but also I am an immigrant. And like I said, I shared in the beginning, I've been on almost all the visas, right? So, I've worked with bigger companies, so I've never seen that resistance of like not having an immigrant on the team. So, I've never seen that. Only two concerns that companies usually have, and I know that Ramesh actually spoke about it earlier. One is if somebody is sponsoring and spending that kind of money for a candidate's visa, we got to prove that value during the conversation, during the interview, and while you submit that resume, right? That is the first thing. Second, a lot of companies don't have that kind of money because sponsorship can sometimes take as high as like $30,000 $50,000 for a company as well if they don't have a lot of systems in place. So company needs to understand, one, do we spend that kind of money? Second, in the background, they have to prove and submit documentation that the degree that this candidate has done is good for the role that they are doing, right? So they always need to have that match. If they don't have that match, a lot of these companies get into scrutiny and auditing, and which is not a best place for a company to spend money, right? Um, Third thing is, how do these job seekers navigate, right? I would always say it, and I'll say it again, visa is the second biggest problem. First, not having the correct value on the table is the first biggest problem for all of us. That means we don't know how to share that I have this value that you're looking for, I have everything that you want. How do we present ourselves is the biggest problem. And I'm not saying it just because now I'm standing here. When I was job searching, I knew my biggest concern was like, how do I share that I can do all of these things? Because I was transitioning from being a CSE as a finance manager to get into recruiting. And to get into Microsoft right after graduation was difficult. I would not say it was like, one click. It was difficult, but I knew what my value was. What am I putting on the table? So visa would be a problem, but then how do you share that value would be a concern. And I know that Ramesh touched upon a couple of these visas already, L1, F1, green card, and EB1, and all of that. One visa that we did not speak about is H4. So if you get married to somebody, and if you are about to get married to somebody, please speak to them about would you be able to work. That means H4 also comes with an EAD and authorization to work, employee authorization document, but only if your spouse or your to be spouse has gone through a specific process of green card, if they have their I-140. So that's another visa which I came on and then later realized I can't have an EAD, and that became a whole circle of work. um, but yes, there are a lot of opportunities. You put the right value in front of the right person and you would get that opportunity.
I think very terrific points, Shreya, in terms of understanding how to map out your value and share that with prospective employers. I think that's what really makes the case for why they should really sponsor you. And I think if we are on the topic of visas, I completely agree with both of you. There are many other visas outside of H1 that people should consider today. Some of them you both have touched upon. I think there's also another one you might have heard of, O1 visa, which is for a very specific few category of highly accomplished experts in the top 1% of their field. But surprisingly, I'm coming across more and more people who are at least vying for something like that. So I know the field is opening up. Earlier it was F1, H1 kind of a route, and now it's multiple different things. People should really talk to immigrant experts and kind of attorneys who can help you with this. I think what we have laid out is just the market landscape, but I think you need to go deeper to identify specifically what would work well for you when it comes to the work permit. um, I think the other thing, which is the most important thing right now, and there are certain questions also that have come up from the audience with regard to this topic, is certain job search strategies that you both believe are coming out to be better or differentiated versus what people have traditionally been doing in job search. So I'll at least share my experience. I think most of the people I have come across, and we come across, thousands of people who use Pivot for their job search and their career transition. It's primarily three things that they focus on when they are looking for a role, right? Traditionally speaking, before they come to Pivot, they usually say, "I have, refreshed my resume, my CV. I have spoken to a few people within my close network, could be friends, family, maybe a couple of cold messages here and there, spoken to one or two people. And then I have started to apply to jobs on portals like LinkedIn, like Indeed, like Naukri in India, all these large job portals. And the experience with that approach in the last 2 years has been extraordinarily disappointing for most people, unfortunately, right? Because of the job market. It's not that that strategy has never been used. That strategy was used by many people, even by me a lot of years ago, and it did drive some outcomes, but it's not driving outcomes anymore, right? And I think the challenges have been shared, in terms of layoffs and competition and all that. Now, we talked about the challenges. What are the strategies, the new age strategies that you both are seeing people should utilize to navigate this market? Specific strategies. I know, like, for example, we should network, we should, build a brand, and some of those things, Ramesh, you already touched upon. But maybe if we could go deeper into that, or maybe share one or two examples where you saw a candidate navigate the market in a slightly differentiated and more successful manner. that in your ways kind of the new bar or the new gold standard, that would be helpful to understand. Ramesh, we can start with you, if that's okay.
Yeah, I first want to start by why the traditional method doesn't work, right? Resume. Resumes are written here in the US very differently. Maybe some business schools, some schools in India might teach that, but it's all focused on metrics, impact, right? You cannot write a resume like a job description. Okay. And then networking, right? If you're only communicating with your close network, family and friends, that you're looking for opportunity, research has proven that, and there are books about this, that your close network might not be as helpful as the next level network, right? Those who are more acquaintances, right? And that's where, like, networking at conferences and in your business school or with your colleagues can be really helpful. And third, the famous job boards. I mean, like you said, like LinkedIn, Indeed, even Glassdoor, all these Monster.com, all these are world famous, right? So that means everybody is on that platform applying for jobs. Uh, so if employers are getting hundreds and thousands of applications within 1 2 days, how are you different from others, right? That's why we keep every career coach and recruiter will repeat, like, networking, because that's going to make a big difference. Now, in terms of specific strategies, I think I would recommend showing your value first. Why are you unique, right? Why should that employer care about you, right? Do you have the skills, not just degrees, not just certificates? Do you have the skills? Do you have the experiences that matter to them? Do you have the skills that can save them millions of dollars? Then it makes sense to hire you and pay you 100 200,000 dollars, right? So showing that value in in-person conversations, in a LinkedIn blog article, or start your own blog, right? Some people start YouTube channels, right? Showing that value is a very, very good idea upfront, right? The second one is, um, like, even small companies, many small, when I say small companies, I'm thinking about, like, even 50 people companies, 100 people companies. I worked, my first job in the US was at a 10 people tech company. They made software for these Cisco phones and all these, landline phones, and I didn't have any background in that industry. Okay. And half of the company were on H1B and employer based green cards. So the point being, if the employer notices, right, that you can provide a lot of value, they would be willing to spend that money. So going beyond that big job boards and thinking beyond these world famous companies, right? There could be a 500 people company that only has presence in one city, or there could be like a 50 people company that's spread all around the world. So if you can add value to that company, right, apply to the jobs on that job board before, and not just apply, build relationships, right? Try to meet the employers where they are. Meetups are a very good, easy way to do that. Okay. um, yeah, I have few more ideas, but I'll stop there for now.
Sure, sure. And Shreya, I think I would love to get your thoughts on the same topic, right? I mean, usually I'm reframing the question, but I think this is one of the most critical questions. So I'm sure you have your perspective, given the work you've done in the field.
And I love that Ramesh has touched on like bigger, beautiful points that all the job seekers should definitely look into. And he did speak about like how important resume is because the idea of what it was outside US and what it is used within US is different. And he did speak about impact. I want to give you all a term for you all to remember. Your resume should have AI, not the resume worded or job scan, but an AI that means action and impact. All your action should be completed with an impact. If you don't have that AI in your resume, that means something is missing. That means whenever you are drafting that resume, step back and now read it as a third person. Right? If I'm writing down my resume, I know everything that I have done and it would make sense to me. Read it as a third person. If a third person is reading, who does not know the company, who does not know anything about you, who does not know anything about your work, now do they understand what you're offering? What is the value addition that you're doing, right? Because me and Ramesh, all three of us are talking about like value addition, and a lot of us as job seekers, we don't know how to add value because one, nobody's speaking to us, nobody's sending a response to us on LinkedIn. We are not getting a response for our applications. How do we share that value, right? Your resume and your LinkedIn are two places where you can share value. One, step back from your resume, follow the AI method and write as if a third, fourth, fifth person is reading who does not know you. then what happens, right? Then going back on LinkedIn, and I saw a lot of questions, so I was drafting that answer in that space. But whenever you are on LinkedIn, don't think that somebody has to respond to me because it's my problem. I'm looking at the job search. Why is nobody responding to me? I am in. It's not about you. You are sending a DM to a second person. It needs to be about them first. That's the very first tip of networking. Make it about the other person first. Why would somebody read a whole 5 paragraphs only about you? Give them a reason to do that, right? So always think that whenever you are crafting that message, it needs to be about them on LinkedIn. And it'll be difficult in the beginning. You don't have to be a content creator, you don't have to write hundreds of blogs. You can one easily engage with every content that the other person is putting out there if you're interested. Second easy way would be to send them DMs which is about them, not just about you. And we can talk more about it. I write a lot about that on LinkedIn, and you all should definitely check that. Another third thing that's working right? Like get an advocate for yourself within the company. You would not get an advocate if you have not given them a reason to believe that you can do it. That is the idea of setting the right value, either through resume, either through your LinkedIn messaging, right? Another thing I think Ramesh has touched upon, I'm just going to double click on it. Do not run after the bigger boards, job boards, and bigger companies. There are a lot of other companies, a lot of other boards who have good opportunities. The simplest thing to do is go on Google, write down, I would write down life cycle management or life cycle recruiting in Seattle area is what I would write down, and there'll be a lot of opportunities that I would not otherwise see on LinkedIn. Not every company pay to LinkedIn to actually display the jobs for longer, right? So you would miss out on opportunities. So find out these other areas. See, I understand the market is busy, right? The market is saying saturated, da da da. But there are people who are getting these jobs, right? Who are these people? They must be doing something differently. So all the things that me and Ramesh we given like 10 good strategies right now. If you all practice those 10 strategies also in the next month, you would start seeing the response rate. You would start seeing people would start responding on LinkedIn. And also the biggest thing that you would start getting those screening calls from the recruiter.
I'll just add one more thing if it helps all the participants here. Think about the job search as a sales and marketing job, right? You're essentially a salesperson when you're looking for a job. So having a good resume, LinkedIn and resume and a portfolio or a blog are all your marketing materials, right? And when you're networking, this is basically a sales job. So, thinking from that perspective, right, and not expecting, like, anybody who worked in sales and marketing knows that even if you get 2% or 5% responses, that's actually quite good in this kind of market, right? So no response or rejections are the norm. Okay, so don't take those personally. Use that data, collect the data, and use that to improve your game, improve your approach.
Very well said. And one of the things that I would just like to add, since we are on the topic, I think Shreya, you talked about the action impact part. I think that's brilliant. The referrals and all. One of the things that I have also seen is the more you differentiate yourself in the current market in the same field, the better off your chances are. Because I feel like if everybody's reading the same stuff online and going to the same workshops and attending the same things, it's starting to feel like when I look at resumes, people are doing all generally the same things within the same field. And so if you can think about like why should, like Ramesh said, think about why should a company hire you in the same way a product might be pitched to you saying like why should you buy that product versus other products, right? So in that, one of the things that has been very helpful for a lot of people I've seen is not just talking about your background and your skills and your impact. I mean, that is all table stakes today. If you're not doing that, you're not meeting the threshold requirement. But where you can take things to the next level is where you connect the dots between what you have, what you bring to the table, with what organizations are specifically looking for in the JDs, at least, or based on the conversations or research that you might have done on the companies. So the more you can do specific research about your target companies, understand what challenges are they dealing with at a deeper level, right? For example, there are earnings reports you can read, media reports you can read for a lot of companies, right, on their website, and understand even one small way where your profile, your skills align with that particular requirement. that can really be a game changer, because A, it shows you are serious, you are committed to that company, to that role, because you've done all that homework. And B, it helps you differentiate, because most people don't do that. Most people don't put in that effort, because they think it's better to apply to 100 roles, with a single click, easy apply, as opposed to applying to 20 roles, but with a more differentiated approach, right? So you're automatically kind of setting yourself apart from the crowd if you go deeper into the target companies. Just wanted to share that one, but I know we are running out of time, so I do want to take up the questions now. We have a lot of questions. I think the first one was about European jobs, and I don't know how much Ramesh or Shreya, do you have any visibility on that front? I have a little bit, but I don't know if you would want to share any insights with regard to specific, especially Western European job markets. Either of you.
I also have a very limited visibility, so I would definitely not give a comment around that. They would probably know that from the same source I would know
Yeah.
it. But then if somebody has a specific question, I'm happy to answer that in the LinkedIn DM and not take up the whole
Sure,
time
sure.
of the
Absolutely.
panel.
I agree with that. All I would say is that some of the trends that we are seeing in US, we are seeing in Europe as well. That's all I want to say. Anti-immigration governments and all that stuff. Let's move on. So we have a question which actually has come up 2 or 3 times in the chat. You might see it. I'll show it here on the screen. This one's from Varun, and his question is, do you know which markets or countries are now more immigrant friendly, or maybe have a talent deficit, so they need more expats or immigrants? I mean, US has always been the poster child. Even to date, despite the challenges, a lot of people still want to come to US. But yes, there's Canada, Australia, UAE, Singapore, all these markets opening up. Have you seen any trends like that, Ramesh or Shreya, with regard to other countries becoming more popular?
Yeah. So I will say, I think one way to think. No, I don't have too much knowledge. I'm not an expert in this field, but I think if you look at which countries are making their policies easy, visa processes easy, and I read not just Portugal, but recently I read, I think one of the Southeast Asian countries which launched a new visa category, and these are all indications that okay, these countries want to attract talent. They're trying to make it easier, the process easier. So that is one way to go about it. But also, you know, just as your everybody's well wisher, I will say, don't take the information that is posted on a website on face value, right? Do your research, right? If you're thinking about, like, let's say higher education and going to spend 1 2 years and crores of rupees, talk to at least 5 people who studied there, not just professors, not just who work in career services, but Indian students, to get more holistic view, right? If you just believe the information in the US ranks or the university website or the company website or consultant website, those are marketing materials. Those could be biased, or you might not know how those numbers were created. So be very careful in that regard.
Got it. Just in the interest of time, we'll move on to the next question because I see a ton of them here. Shreya, I think the next one is specifically for you, if I'm not mistaken. It's from Sakshi, and she's been following you, admires you a lot, so that's really nice of her. But also, Sakshi is graduating soon in a few months, and she's asking if she should be actively applying at this stage, or when should she start? What's your thought?
Yeah. So, hi, Sakshi. Thank you for following. And I'm glad that you resonate with what we post. Would say that you should already start applying by now, because a lot of these bigger companies have an idea that your OPT would only start after May. And then so two things. One, if you start applying right now and you see that there is good traction for your applications and you might get that offer sooner, you can get the OPT date started sooner. So it can just be like the 1st of June, right after your graduation, right? But if you see that there are some differences between what you're offering and what they want, that's your time right now, these 5 months, to bridge that gap, to fill those gaps, right? So to everybody who's now graduating in May 2025, you all should have already started applying, also networking, also coffee chats, also building that LinkedIn profile also. So it's never too soon, honestly.
Yeah, I'll just add, let's think about the process, right? Companies take 2 3 months or longer for the entire hiring process. Okay, and also the OPT application timeline, right? Nowadays, it's taking 3 4 months to get the OPT, approval. So essentially, we are talking, if you have an offer If you have an offer now, you're going to get the OPT, best case scenario, April or May. So it's better to start as early as possible. This is a perfect time to be actively applying and interviewing, so you have everything ready and you can start working almost immediately after graduation.
Got it. We have another question from Rishabh, but it's similar to what we have already covered with regard to which countries are immigrant friendly, how easy or difficult it is to land jobs. So I think, Rishabh, hopefully you would have gotten insights if you were listening in on the rest of the conversation. I do want to get to some of the newer questions that we have not covered. This is a very valid question, I think, from Hari Prakash. We often talk about do networking, do coffee chats, reach out to people, go to meetups, all of that. But I mean, the bigger challenge when people really the rubber hits the road is you don't hear back from people, right? When you're reaching out on LinkedIn and doing cold networking. So I think it's a two-part process, typically, who you reach out to and how you reach out to them. Like, what is your message? What does it say? So his focus is on the first part, I think. Either of you want to address
Yeah.
this?
Yeah, I can start, and I'm sure Ramesh would have amazing points as well. I would say two things. So right now in my DMs, if I would open my LinkedIn right now, there'll probably be 15 messages sitting, right? I would choose which ones to reply to. Now, a lot of people would just say that, hey, this is the job I'm looking for. Here is my resume. If you have anything in your company, let me know. Or would you be open to speak with me for 15 minutes and guide me? There is one, not a clear ask. I don't know what am I supposed to do with that message, right? And when we jump on that 15-minute call, what is that they're looking for? I need that specific direction. What am I getting into right now? Correct. So I think the first thing is, whenever you are sending out that message, have a very, very, very clear ask. This is what I want from you. A 15-minute of conversation to understand more about your job at Microsoft. The 15-minute of conversation to understand what do you do at the super coach right now as a coach, right? And do not write 2,500 lines. Two good paragraphs of who you are and what you want is great. And I know that he's laughing because it's difficult to read all through and then still get interested and engage, because now I don't know what to do with like 5 paragraphs of everything that you've written. One, clear ask. Second, a concise message with two if they still want to speak to you. And ask if you want to have a coffee chat about this thing. And then I can share that I might not be the right person, somebody else would be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Ramesh?
Yeah, I'll add. So first of all, I'm not answering this question, but everybody might know, or most of you might know, but AI tools are really good. Okay, it's a free career coach. Okay, you don't have to pay for any AI tools. Use ChatGPT or Perplexity or any of the AI tools, and more than half of the content we are discussing here, AI can answer for you for free in like two minutes. Okay, so I would highly recommend using one of these AI tools that you want to. Okay, so definitely do that, and it can help you a lot with networking also. Now, to specifically answer this question, theoretically, I think networking with anybody who works in that company or industry is helpful. But if you're short on time and if you want to take a more strategic approach, I would say ideally someone who works in that team, right? Not just hiring manager, but anybody who works in that same team, someone at the same level. If you want to be a product manager, who are the other product managers, or who are the other people who might be collaborating with the product managers? So UX designers, project managers, senior, the head of the department, or someone junior. I think anybody in that immediate and next circle will have knowledge about the company and potentially about the role, the customers, the market. All this information can be really helpful when you're writing the cover letter and when you're interviewing. So anybody, I would say 1 to 2 levels in that network beyond the team.
Got it. I think we have a lot more questions. I definitely don't think we'll be able to cover all of them. So, in case we don't cover your question, please do reach out to any of us, here on LinkedIn. You can also check out our website. But Shreya, Ramesh, do you have maybe a few more minutes to cover at least two, three more questions? We have at least 10 more, so I won't go through all of them, but maybe two or three questions if that's okay with you.
Yeah, I can do 10 more minutes.
Okay, great. Thank you. Perfect. So the next one I think is for Shreya, you and me, but I'm sure Ramesh, you'll have a good perspective. It's from Purva and bringing it up right now. So she moved to US from Singapore a year ago, HR professional, 12 years. Is it a good choice to opt for any job that lets you your foot in the door? irrespective of the experience that you have or education that you have you heard of success stories in this kind of a move? That's a very interesting question. Job market stuff, people are lowering their standards of what they are okay with just to get their foot in the door. Would you suggest that somebody does this kind of a job? I'm assuming that their ideal job in HR would be something, non-operational or non-administrative. It would be slightly more strategic. So doing a cashier or guest services or bank teller job would be a step down, just at least purely from a
Hmm.
comp perspective, if nothing else. So Shreya, we'll
Hmm.
start off with you.
Yeah, so of course there's a context here. So one, if they don't have a visa to work in another company for as an HR professional, then they can take just to fill in the gap, still understand the languages or anything processes structure, and of course a balance there. But if you all have a visa and then you can still work in a corporate in a company, I would say that put all your efforts in finding that right job, networking with the right people, updating your resume. But again, I would still point, if finance is something that they are trying to balance, job on the side, part time or otherwise, is not a bad thing. You all can definitely do that. But if finance and visa is not a problem, I would suggest give yourself a goal of like 6 months or something that you're looking for, because 12 years of experience, and I don't think it will be a major issue to take up those roles, and especially January and February. January, we've been seeing lots of jobs open. So that would be my answer, that if job and finance and visa is not a problem, try finding something in your area. But if those two are the concerns, then don't apply for these jobs, but give yourself a definite goal when you move into these positions. And then Purva, you and I can have a better conversation through DM, because I don't have a lot of context of the situation right now.
Ramesh,
Yeah.
anything you would like to add?
Yeah, I will add that, US employers, and I believe this is applicable to all countries, Western countries, or wherever you're moving, local local experience, right, is going to be a lot more valuable, right? Especially in fields where the laws are significantly different. I'm talking about healthcare, HR, even other fields where there are more country specific laws and best practices. So if you can, like, yes, for getting money, do whatever you need to do legally, okay, but I think at least working on the weekends or part time in a role that is very, very much in line with your experience and what you want to do is going to be a lot helpful. So the simplest thing you can do is volunteer for a non-profit legally, right? Or help a startup for a few months. And these, even though they might not pay well or you're donating your time, but you're still gaining industry specific, country specific, region specific knowledge. You're building your network that can help you with referrals, okay, or they will see how much quality work you're doing, and they can potentially create a job for you, which is very much what happens in a lot of small companies. Even big companies all the time create opportunities for new talent when they notice that talent.
And I want to double click on that. And I know that we just not be taking more time on one question, but this is for everybody and not for one specific question. Anybody who is looking for a job and don't know how to get those referrals that Ramesh was talking about, and don't know how to build that portfolio, volunteering and freelancing would be a beautiful space to start. You all can actually start doing it, because that would help you exactly all these things that he mentioned. One, to build the portfolio, bring the right people into your network, and also give you an idea of the process and structure. So there's a website called volunteermatch.org. I found a lot of my work from there when I was in my MBA, because I did a lot of projects there. So you can definitely look into that. And also there are spaces to find these freelancing that you can do while you're searching for these roles, right? So I'm glad that you brought that
Yeah,
up,
yeah.
Ramesh.
I'll just add one thing. Volunteering, even if you're not getting paid, even if you're working only 5 hours per week, you make sure you're legally in the right, like you have the proper documentation. If you're a student, you need approvals, you need proper paperwork. I forget the name, I-95 or something like that. So make sure your school provides that paperwork, even if it's an unpaid part-time volunteering opportunity. You have to confirm with the authorities to avoid future issues.
Got it. Yeah, let's move on to the next one quickly. This is a quick one, about where can people find information about companies that sponsor H1B. I think I've seen this before. I've actually seen people post this on LinkedIn as well. There is some sort of a way to identify through government database. Shreya or Ramesh, are either of you aware of how to identify this?
Yeah,
Ramesh,
I
you're
can go
nodding.
first.
So
Yeah, I can go first. Myvisajobs.com is a very good source, but I would recommend following a few professionals, including Soundarya Balasubramani, who published the book Unshackled last year. It's a wonderful book to read about different immigration pathways. She shared real life stories in that, who follow different paths. There are other premium websites and apps. I think I'll share an article, link to an article posted by Soundarya Balasubramani, in which she links all these resources, free resources and premium resources.
great, great. I think, yeah, I think she might be the person who I was referring to as well. Um, and then I think maybe just one or two more questions. So, what advice would you have for people who feel unsure about posting on LinkedIn? That's a good question because a lot of people are not very comfortable with you know putting out content and putting themselves out there just because it's something new. And also sometimes people feel judged by others and they may not be able to share that they are transitioning, if they are already, especially people who are already working at a certain organization. I've heard this feedback from them a lot, that if I put out content and post, my current employer might feel that I'm planning to leave or do something which is not agreeable to them. So
Yeah.
yeah, Shreya, we'll start with you. Any thoughts on how to navigate this?
Yeah, two things. One, to be visible, to have the spotlight, you don't need to always post content, right? You can always engage with the already posted content. So you can find out like 5 or 10 of these industry experts, 5 or 10 of these recruiters, or these people from the company that you are targeting. You can start engaging with their comments and content, right? And if they are not posting, they must be commenting somewhere else. You can engage with the comments that they have done in the different posts. That'll be one way. Another thing would be when you're trying to be active on LinkedIn and you don't want to post, you can just repost something that they've been said, right? So me, Arjun, Ramesh, we all post on LinkedIn. If you're that would get my attention to like who is this person who's reposted and what are they trying to say, right? So it'll be easy for me to reach to you if you've reposted or commented on the content that I have done. Visibility on LinkedIn comes through a lot of ways. And if you're looking at confidentiality, especially if you are currently working, you don't have to post. There can be laws against this. There can be conflict of interest. Commenting on other people's profile, engaging with them, or sharing that content with somebody else and having that DM conversation. A lot of people does that with me, and that's why I'm saying it. They share my post in my own DM and say like, "Hey, I really liked it that you wrote this. Here are my thoughts." If you don't want to post it publicly.
Got it.
Yeah,
Ramesh, feel free to add. Otherwise, we can take up maybe one last question and wrap this up. Either way is
yeah,
fine.
I'll just say, start small. Basically, liking, commenting, reposting. And if you're sharing something that is truth, right? Like that you just joined a program, you just moved to a different country, you're looking for opportunities, right? I mean, yeah, some people might have thoughts about it, but you're sharing truth and there is no fluff in that. I think you should be able to comfortably share that. It's a new platform. If Yeah, there are some etiquettes, expectations, but I think you'll get comfortable over time. You can see what others are posting and maybe follow that format. Okay. Yeah.
Okay, I think one final question and then we wrap this up, because this is something different than what we have covered so far, from Ramya, which is slightly broad but kind of important, which is what are the common mistakes people might make according to you prior to moving abroad? Anything that we should be aware of and consider so that basically we maximize our chances of success? Are there any specific pitfalls or things that generally people do when they're planning their move internationally, that I mean, maybe from your own experience, that you wish you did differently?
I can
Yeah, go ahead.
so underestimating the cultural gap,
Hmm.
underestimating the market gap, right? Underestimating the idea that things might work differently here. And I love that we all are like super confident that when we come from anywhere to a new country, we're like, this is who I am, this is who I want to be. um, might not be the best space and a best thought, right? It's okay to be a little, flexible in that space. So, like, I think he just used a beautiful word, etiquettes. So, have that idea of how things work on LinkedIn, how things work in a company, how things work during conversations, all of that. So, try learning that piece and cultural, not only from a company country perspective but also from the work perspective. I would say that is the biggest pitfall that we all experience, um, where we don't give ourselves enough time to get used to the new thing and only try bringing whatever we have done in the 20, 30 years of our life earlier.
Yeah,
Yeah, and I think people are a lot warmer than they seem, I would say. That they're kind, they are warmer. You can have good conversations if you are open for that, is what I've experienced.
yeah. To add to that, I think beyond just being thinking beyond the professional or the career aspect, it's very important to get acclimated to the culture, meet with people from different cultures, especially locals, so you can understand what their thinking is, what is important for them, what is local holidays. Another big thing I notice is people don't understand, like students or professionals coming to the US don't understand or don't think about the cost of living, right? And also like the impact of many things that they take for granted in India, and here they have to do it all by themselves. Cooking, washing clothes, maintaining their proper apartment, right? Most of them feel very alone, especially if you're in a small city with very few Indians. So you have to think about these things as well, right? The community, the support system, right? How are you going to live? Where are you going to live? How are you going to manage your life, especially if you lived with your parents all along, or if you had a lot of support and you never had to think about washing clothes, cooking food, etc., etc. So these things are also equally important.
In a nutshell, taking care of themselves that they've never done in
Yeah,
India. Yeah.
being an adult. Yeah,
Perfect. Great.
That.
Thank you so much to both of you. I think a very, very insightful session. Lot of questions still pending to be covered, which shows how much interest there is in this topic. So I'm very glad that we did this. Thank you to everybody who joined us from all over the world. I'm sure there are people from India and US, but other countries as well. I hope you got what you were looking for, specific insights that you can implement to to accomplish your career goals. If there is anything that we didn't cover, feel free to check out our platform. We have shared the link for it. Pivot is the brand name. Website is mypivot.work. Also, please reach out to Shreya and Ramesh. We have shared their LinkedIn profiles in the chat section. So in case you have specific questions for them, shoot them a DM, but make sure it's a targeted question so that they actually would want to respond enthusiastically to your question. All right. With that, I would bring this to a close and just thank everyone once again, especially Ramesh and Shreya for your time and all your insights.
Thank you, Arjun. Thank you so much. And it was a great, insightful conversation. I'm glad that we could answer some of these questions. And thank you for bringing both of us here.
yeah, thank you for
Absolutely.
inviting. This was a great opportunity. I also shared some list of books. I would recommend students to read these books specifically written for international students. Okay.
Ramesh, I
Thank you.
think you might have shared that with me, so I'm just going to
Yeah.
quickly post that.
Yeah, those books are also mentioned in the comments in that Balasubramani's post. Okay.
Beautiful.
Perfect,
And this is
perfect.
for everybody. Definitely reach out to either of us, and our DMs are open. Be happy to answer any questions that we would be able to.
Yeah,
Amazing.
likewise.
Thank you so much for being so open and sharing with your knowledge. And I hope people are able to leverage it. And it's tough out there, but you can do this. You just got to hang in there. I think Shreya, you pointed out beautifully in your post. It's not always about the fact that you have to do it yourself. Sometimes you need the right people in your corner, and I hope you find those people
Absolutely.
to support you through this journey. So thank you again for joining us. I hope you have a great rest of your day or evening wherever you are.
Yeah. Thank you,
Thank you.
everyone.
Bye.
Thanks, Arjun. Thanks, Ramesh.
Bye.
Bye.